I got a haircut, and I didn't mean to look like your lesbian aunt from the 80s, but let's roll with it. Welcome back to my channel. I forgot to put mascara on, and there is a fan blowing. I'm sorry if that's distracting you with the noise, but it is so goddamn hot in Florida right now. So I need it. Today I'm here to impart some wisdom. Now, when I came back from my hiatus, I mentioned that I wanted to do a little more lessons that I've learned type of content on this channel, because your girl has screwed a lot of stuff up and learned a lot of things on this journey to my debut novel, which comes out fall 2018. But I wanted to share the lessons that I've learned with you guys so that you can avoid making these mistakes. Although if you have more than 20 brain cells, you probably don't make these mistakes, but this week's video is mistakes that I made while world building. Now, if you don't know, Civil Blood is the first book in a trilogy. This is gonna be sort of half how to not fuck up writing a series and half things that you should know before you start building a world. First of all, if this is your first endeavor into writing, like it was mine, if you are a brand new little baby author, don't write a series. Just don't do it. Write a standalone. Just do your best on a standalone story. Give it sequel potential. Don't put that on yourself. Trust me. But if you're like a masochist or an idiot like I am, and you needed to tell a 3-part story and it could not possibly fit into one book, or even 2, it had to be 3. It used to be 4, by the way. Really glad that I saw the light on that one. But if you're like me and you have to write a damn series, let me just give you a little bit of advice. I'm sort of combining this making writing a series easier and making world building easier into one point, and that point is to outline the entire thing first. Not kidding. I know this sounds like 101 of writing a series is to outline the whole thing, but I will tell you, my first book was pretty much done before I figured out what the hell was happening in the second book, and I kind of still don't really know what's happening in the third one. I have an outline though now. I didn't up until I watched a video that Kristen Martin posted. I will link it in the description below, about how important it is to outline your series. Like, who knew? Like, not me apparently. The thing that really helped me was I went ahead and I wrote out beat by beat, like the important things that had to happen in all 3 books, because that I had an idea of. The nitty gritty little parts I really didn't, but that's the point of writing, is sometimes you can figure it out as you go along. With those big plot points, I didn't even know what was gonna happen in book 2 and 3 until I started writing them down as an entire story. So go from Civil Blood, or your first book, all the way to the end of the last book and write it out as one continuous story. And I also used a corkboard and post-it notes, and I just put all the beats out, so that way, especially with the second book, I've had to go through and switch things around. That's really helped me a lot, is just to have a huge visual of the different, I did it by chapter because each chapter in my story is a scene. I would definitely do it scene by scene and write them on individual post-its or index cards, slips of paper, tack them up on the corkboard so you can move them around. A lot of people will do it on their floor, whatever you want to do, but a big visual layout of the order that you want your story to go in, and I guarantee you it makes it so much easier to see where the plot holes come into place, and also where you need to put your breadcrumbs. Speaking of breadcrumbs, if you're gonna drop breadcrumbs, you need to remember what those breadcrumbs are leading to. This is more of a world building thing, but it's also important when you're plotting a series. If you ever read a story and you get all these breadcrumbs that seem to be leading to something really cool, and then nothing ever comes of those breadcrumbs, that's because the author didn't keep track of the foreshadowing that they did and forgot to actually give it a point. And that can happen if you don't outline properly, and also if you don't build your world out thoroughly before you start writing. And especially if you don't go back and check your foreshadowing and your little breadcrumbs against what you've decided needs to be foreshadowed. If you know there are big reveals that you're gonna have in your series throughout, you need to write those down, and you need to write out ways that you can foreshadow those things so that you make sure you're planting those seeds and dropping those breadcrumbs from the beginning, because you don't want it to come out of nowhere. You don't want it to seem like a convenient plot point or a deus ex machina, whatever how you say that. You don't want it to seem like it just comes out of nowhere. You want it to be really satisfying for your reader when they get to the end of book 3 and they realize that this person was the chosen one all along or whatever, that they can go all the way back to book 1 and be like, oh, it was there the whole time. Everyone kept saying it without saying it. Not in an obvious way, but now that I know it, I can go back and see it. You know you love like a satisfying twist, but a twist is only satisfying if you had little hints the whole time, like hello, Sixth Sense. Like, that's the most satisfying twist of all time, because the whole time, if you knew what to look for, it was right in front of your face. So you want to give your reader that satisfaction of being like, I knew it, or oh my god, how did I not see that coming? Or, you know, when they flip back, they're able to see, oh my god, I was so dumb for not seeing that. That's so satisfying as a reader. And that's a huge part of making sure that your series is cohesive, that you're dropping your breadcrumbs in the proper places and making sure they lead to a gingerbread house. So let's compare and contrast. For example, I don't like an ending that's all tied up with a nice little bow on it. Like at the end of Deathly Hallows, spoiler alert, we get an epilogue that says that Harry and Ginny got married and Ron and Hermione got married and they have children. These are their names and these are their jobs. I didn't need all that. What I did love was that all the alliances and prophecies and horcruxes and all those were squared away nice and neat. Compare that to Twilight, where from New Moon all the way to the end of Breaking Dawn, we're told this all-out war with the Volturi is gonna happen. Like, they're pissed about Bella, blah 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 blah. We gear up for war, and spoiler alert, if you've only watched the movies and never read the books, there's no fight. They have a chat and then everything's cool. And that was so frustrating to me. Breaking Dawn is so frustrating. We're not even gonna talk about it. But that particular ending to this series was so frustrating to me, because we had been gearing up for this battle. Even in New Moon, when they're confronting the Volturi, when Bella goes to Italy, that was more satisfying and more tense and more climactic than the end of the series itself. And that's a shame. And so you don't want to drop breadcrumbs when you have no idea where they're going, or you don't intend on fulfilling the little hints that you're dropping. Great way to make sure that you can keep track of all the hints that you're dropping is with a series Bible. Now, this is all I can really show you of my series Bible, because hello, my first book hasn't even come out yet, and also I haven't printed everything yet because I'm still working on it, because like I said, I didn't really plan my series that well ahead of time. So first book is coming out like soon, and I don't really have like a world building Bible. So that's a problem that I'm working on solving. Luckily, I was able to get in at the 11th hour with some more edits and things that I figured out while I was building the series Bible. I was able to go ahead and fix. But you don't want to be that person who's got a book out and you wrote yourself into a corner with the rest of your series because that book's already in print, and now you've got to stick to what you said, but you've written yourself into giant plot holes for things that you wanted to happen in the rest of your series. By the way, the series Bible templates that I'm using are from author Brittany Wang's video. I will link that down below as well. The video is really helpful regarding like how to build a series Bible. It's really daunting, but it's really, really worth it when you're writing a series or when you're trying to build a huge sort of fantasy realm. This has been super helpful in me keeping my magic system straight, because I planted a lot of breadcrumbs for things that I'm not going to end up using, because there's a lot going on in my series. There's 2 different points of view, sometimes 3, and there is of course like a core conflict, but there's lots of individualized things having to do with magic and bloodlines and chosen people and things like that, that it's hard to keep track of sometimes. And so that's really helping me a lot. It's just keeping everybody's like powers in check, or what this says about this. And you know, it's hard to talk about this without giving any spoilers. Because one of the reasons that I really wanted to do a series Bible is because if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen this a couple months ago. I had already sent my book to my editor, my first book, so it was like ready to go, in my opinion. And then as I was starting to kind of brainstorm book 2 and book 3, my main antagonist, her name is Renae. She's very much like you don't really meet her in the first book. You see her influence and you see the kind of havoc that she wreaks, but she's a demon, so she possesses other people. So you don't get to meet her in book 1. So because of that, I hadn't even thought about, when we do get to meet her, what can she do? What are her abilities? What can she not do? Her herself, where does she come from? Like, I had an antagonist that I hadn't even thought out. I knew some big, important, revealing things about her that made her motive clear, that made her characterization clear, but her actual abilities, the things that were going to make the story of the 3rd book, I had no idea. I hadn't laid any breadcrumbs for it. I had said she could do this, this, and this, and then I realized that none of those things were gonna be helpful in the rest of the books, and they didn't really matter, so then I got to come out. So it's just really important to have a solid base of what your character, especially if you have a fantasy realm or a sci-fi realm where people have certain abilities, you need to keep track of what they are. You need to keep track of what they can't do. You need to keep track of their mannerisms and like their physical attributes, because let me tell you, when I went through my final edit of Civil Blood, even my very first book, I said the character had brown hair, black hair, wavy hair, and straight hair. I have pictures that I write from, I have character portraits that I write from, and I still fucked up this girl's hair 4 different times. Another thing is things like family trees. Like, it's very clear when you read my book kind of who's related to who, but you don't understand the history of like why Sparrow's dad doesn't have a gift even though he's an elder, and why Sparrow does have a gift. You wouldn't understand that unless you understood that Sparrow's mom was River's mom's twin sister, and so she got her gift from her mom and not her dad. But then when her mom died, her dad got put on the council, and like you wouldn't understand that, and you don't need to understand that until later on. And so I had to build that family tree, but you won't get that until book 2, just because it didn't matter until book 2. It didn't need to be talked about until book 2, but it was mentioned because you gotta drop your breadcrumbs. You can't just come out of nowhere with that, because then it sounds like you just made that up for the convenience of your plot. So in conclusion to this hot mess of a video, make a series Bible. Ensure that your book needs to be a series and that you can't tell it all in one story. If it needs to be a series, you need to outline your series as one cohesive story. You need to be able to move your plot points around, I suggest in a physical way, whether that is a cork board or you just lay some index cards out on the ground or you get a poster board or whatever you need to do to be able to move those parts around, because there are gonna come times where something may have to be put in a different place and you don't wanna have to tear up your whole outline and start all over. Also, keep track of where your foreshadowing is. Keep track of the things that need to be foreshadowed and how you can do them, and then plug them in on that big physical outline of your story. And that will really help you keep track of the things that you're giving your readers, those little breadcrumbs, those little hints that we love as readers and we gobble them up, but they have to come to some kind of point. Don't make it a Volturi situation, make it a Horcrux situation. And once again, if you want some tips on how to outline your series, Kristen Martin's video is linked below. If you want some series Bible templates, Brittany Wang's video is listed below. I make new videos every Saturday. I will see you guys next Saturday, and